My girlfriend and I own this house 100%. We don't have a mortgage, we don't owe anybody any money, and it's pretty great. Let's talk about it. So I want to talk a little bit about, I guess, why we did this and our motivation behind our actions here, because that also leads into the lifestyle that we're living, I suppose. And of course, we're gonna get into how, and also just how much does it cost us now to actually live here without a mortgage. But first, let's start with the house itself, because of course that is an important part of the equation here. So the house is located in Denmark, obviously, and we are like in a small town, just a bit more than an hour away from Copenhagen. And we purchased the house for around 125,000 US dollars. And of course, this point is a big part of why we are able to be debt-free now. The house itself is, I think, like 106 square meters, and then there's like some rooms that are not counted in towards that, so probably around 130 or so. There's 3 bedrooms, and then there is what was supposed to be an office, but we discovered that there are some problems out there that we'll have to work on later. Then there's of course the 2 adjoined living rooms, which we have fixed up and are looking really good. And then there's the dining room and the kitchen. So for us, a really nice big sized house, and we feel like our money really goes a long way here. Like we get a lot of house per dollar, if you can say that. Of course, we need to do a lot of renovation to get this house looking how we want to, but we're working on it. Okay, so to talk about the why and our motivation for, I guess, pursuing lower expensive, really, we need to go back like 5 years or so to like 2019 or 2020. Me and my girlfriend were both studying, but coming up, I guess, towards the end of our educations. And then my girlfriend Sally was diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis, which is a pretty horrible chronic illness that has no cure. You can only kind of treat it a bit. And she did get some treatment and she's doing great, but of course you'll always be affected by this illness. And I suppose that was when our mindset really started shifting, and we really started thinking a lot more about, okay, what do we want to do now, but also what do we want to do in the long term? Both because it was sort of a reality check that anything really can happen. But also we were looking into the reality. I mean, Sally might not be able to work full time until her retirement age. And so really, I guess we kind of decided then that we wanted to pursue some kind of time freedom, so that if Sally had to work less, she could, and it wouldn't perhaps require me to work then 2 or 3 jobs, or perhaps Sally could work from home or something like that. So we decided that starting our own businesses was like the way to go. And so that's what we did. And we kind of did our own businesses on the side while we were studying, and Sally started working full time then as well. But it was around this same time that we bought our apartment in Copenhagen. And again, at least at the time, we thought this was a fantastic financial investment, and also just we would get a fantastic place to live as well. And we were not quite wrong. I mean, the apartment was nice, it was in a very awesome location, but of course, it was really expensive. So we got a very big mortgage. I think we were paying like $1,000 a month in a mortgage, and then we had a bank loan on top of it. So perhaps like $1,500 a month just on the loans and the mortgage. And we were actually both still studying when we bought this apartment, but very close to finishing our studies. So the bank could then kind of look at our, I guess, projected salaries that we would get with our respectful educations, and then calculate how much we would be able to buy an apartment for with that amount instead of what we were earning right now. It was also in the times of, I guess, negative interest rates. So like the bank was pretty open to talking with us at that time. That has changed. And then we had saved up quite a bit of money for the down payment. But then reality hit even more, I think, when Sally started working full time for a few months, and with her MS on top of it, like she just couldn't do it. Like her body could not keep up with that. So I remember we went for a walk one day and we're kind of just talking about, okay, what are we gonna do? I was looking into some job opportunities when I finished my studies, but I mean, I wasn't really feeling that. It would have been totally just for the money. We both wanted to go full time in our respective businesses, but at the time we just didn't make enough money to cover our pretty big mortgage and expenses for living in Copenhagen. So that's when we decided to rent out our apartment and then travel, because that way we would actually be saving quite a bit of money every month and would be able to live off of the money we were making in our businesses right now. So that's what we did. And at first we were only supposed to do it for like 6 months or so, but we ended up doing it for a couple of years, traveling around mainly, of course, in countries that have lower expenses compared to what we were earning still in Danish kroner. So basically we were like digital nomads for a couple of years there. And that was fantastic, but we always knew that we didn't want to do it like forever. And we wanted to settle down more and perhaps get a house like this at some point. And I actually made a video almost 2 years ago now about like why we stopped being a digital nomads, kind of talking about all the things about being a digital nomad. And that video went kind of crazy viral, at least for me. So it's really cool, you can check that out later. But we got back home after traveling, so we got back to our apartment and everything. And then we had to decide, okay, what to do. And we weighed some different options. But ultimately, we ended up on selling our apartment, then taking the profits and all of the amount of money we had, I guess, paid off on the loan so far, take that amount of cash and see if we couldn't buy a house for that money. So when we sold the apartment, I think we had around 150,000 US dollars cash. I think the normal thing to do here in Denmark would be to then, I guess, buy a larger, more expensive apartment or perhaps a house in the suburbs, but you would roll your profits into your next house and then kind of keep upgrading, but always, and then you get a new mortgage and so on. And at least in Denmark, that has over the past many years shown to be perhaps the best way to make a lot of money, because property prices keep going up around the major cities. But of course, then you'll see people have large mortgages, large expenses, and then they'll have a whole lot of money when they're old. And really, we wanted to enjoy some of that money now and make use of the freedom. We were also talking about wanting to have kids soon, and we didn't just want to be working all the time when we had a kid. So we started looking at these cheaper houses that we could buy cash in order to buy us more freedom, even though we would potentially be losing out on a lot of like future profits from the property prices in Copenhagen just exploding, right? And so that will bring us up until today, where we just bought this house, no mortgage, nothing, and we have a lot more freedom. Sally is now pregnant and she is quite ill, so now she's just working a lot less because she can. And that is awesome. And when our son gets here in a few months, we'll just be able to spend a lot of time with him. Of course, you can say, we got really lucky that we made quite a bit of money from the apartment in Copenhagen. And you're so lucky. You're living in Denmark, a very rich country. And sure, that's obviously true. Like, just that fact just grants us a whole lot of opportunities that perhaps people in other places of the world simply don't have. Of course, we can't really change where we are born. But again, when we bought the apartment, everyone we talked to were like, no, this was like basically during COVID, right? So, and everyone was saying, no, don't buy an apartment now. Are you crazy? The market's gonna crash, look, COVID, everything. And of course, the exact opposite happened. So I guess the thing is, like, you never know. You might get super lucky like us or not. I guess the one thing that we did do was just to had saved up a lot of money over the years. So we were able to put down a pretty big down payment. And when we were staying in the apartment, like every single extra dollar we had, we were pushing towards the loans just to pay off as much as possible all the time. And that's one thing, like living in Copenhagen is amazing. If we had a lot more money, we would have bought a house in Copenhagen, but then we would need a lot more money. But it was like that double-edged sword, I guess. We were staying in Copenhagen, really nice, but we were spending all our money on the mortgage. So we didn't have any money to like go out for drinks, go eat out, because we just didn't have any money. And Copenhagen is really expensive. But okay, what does that look like now financially for us? So our expenses for just living in the house, I'll try to put up the individual items here on the screen. but really it comes out to around $500 per month for the both of us. And of course, then we split that bill. So that's the property taxes, we're paying for the trash collection, all our utilities and all that. And we do spend, I guess, quite a bit in like heating this house because it is like old and not super well insulated. Now there is one item missing from this list, and that's like maintenance for the house. But I just couldn't really find, I guess, a realistic number because, I mean, one, I've never owned a house before, so I just have no clue how much you actually spend. And then now, like up until now and going further, we are like renovating the house. So what we are spending now, I guess, is not really what we what we're going to spend like each month long term. So obviously we need to add a little bit of money towards this monthly budget when we start looking forward a little bit. But that also means that with our house, our car, which we also own 100%, all our expenses towards food and everything, I mean, we can live here for like $1,500 or $1,700 per month. And that's living like well here. That's budgeted for, you know, we buy not the most expensive food, but also not the cheapest food. There's like going out for dinner once or twice a month in there as well. But really our expenses are just so low here in Denmark, at least. I mean, again, that's what we spent on just the mortgage and loans when we were living in Copenhagen. So that just buys us a huge amount of freedom. I mean, basically we can survive on one of us working part-time. And the main part of that is having our house paid off. So that financial freedom, that feeling is incredible. And I mean, we're both only 30. So, I mean, we won't just be one of us working part-time now, but so that means that we can save up a lot of money, travel a lot, and just do more of what we want to do instead of just throwing all our money against an apartment in Copenhagen. And just going back to that video I mentioned earlier about why we stopped being digital nomads. I just recently rewatched it, and I mean, it's super cringe watching like yourself from a few years ago. But anyway, I do mention in that video how it doesn't really matter like digital nomad, expat, if we're in Denmark, whatever. The important thing for us was the freedom. And that still holds very true today. And that is really our main motivation for all of this that we're doing here. And for us not having a mortgage, paying for this house cash. So I think it is interesting to talk about this because, again, as I mentioned, like the normal way to do things is just if you actually get into the housing market and manage to buy something, then you just keep upgrading and spending all your money. But I mean, there are other ways to do it. You don't have to follow what is normal. Of course, it's a very individual decision. And I mean, if you work in the middle of Copenhagen, you might not want to live an hour or more away from Copenhagen and have to commute so much. But perhaps you have a remote job, or you can work from home 2 or 3 days a week. You can find a local job, whatever it is. I mean, I just think that when the thing with Sally's MS happened, like that really just opened our minds a little bit and started looking for alternative ways to do things and to live our lives. And we are really happy. And like now the big thing, of course, for us is renovating this house, which I do have like videos on, and we'll be making more about the whole process of renovating this 125-year-old house here in Denmark. And quite a lot of you who watched, especially my video about the living room here, how it turned out and how I made a lot of the things, like the big IKEA shelving unit behind me. Like it got just such a positive response, and it's really cool, you know, reading all your awesome comments and everything. So thank you so much, and thank you for watching. See you in the next video where I will show you the renovations of my home office.